Okay, can you guys hear me? Laura, I was having some Wi-Fi issues, but I think I just switched to my network. Can you hear me? Awesome. Awesome. Good. All right, coffee time. Okay, I think I have a minute. Fantastic. I'm gonna wait for some other folks to join. Good morning, everyone who's already joined. Hey. Okay, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get started with at least an introduction and a thank you. Basically, I want to thank Laura and the folks, the good people at the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts for actually having me. And I want to thank all of you guys for showing up. I guess today I'm opening up my studio for like an Instagram live feed. This is like, I don't usually do things like this, so this is kind of new for me, but I'm glad that you're able to kind of hang out with me for about 30 minutes. I guess today I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, my practice, so to speak, and then show you around the space the best I can, and then talk a little bit about the pieces that I have in the space, and answer any questions along the way. And I'm going to try to keep, looking at some of the questions. I'm pretty sure what's probably going to happen is I'll talk a little bit about what I do, answer some questions that people have asked me in the past, talk about my work, show you around the space, and then maybe answer a lot of your questions somewhere towards the end. That can happen. But feel free to ask away, and I'll promise I'll get to most of the questions. Again, Darius Hill. I'm a studio artist. I'm from Birmingham. I've been making art for a long time. I went to school I'm a graduate of the Alabama School of Fine Arts, and that's where it all kind of began for me. And I'm happy to say that I'm the chair of the art department at the same school that I went to, and it's pretty cool. I've been the chair of the art department at ASFA for 20 years. But I do like to consider myself a studio artist first, a teacher and administrator second. I think that's important. I think that's one of our secret weapons as far as our department goes. So we are all practicing studio artists, making work, and then we're basically taking those experiences that we have in the studio to the classroom. And I think I like to think the students benefit from it. I benefited from it when I was a student there years ago. All right, so I see we have a lot of people joining. I guess to begin with, a lot of people consider me a printmaker. I've been making art in Birmingham for a long time. I guess when I came on the scene, so to speak, I was making a lot of prints. And I was doing a lot of drawing as well. But the printmaking thing seems to be sticking. I just like to consider myself an artist because I'm all over the place. As you can see, I have some three-dimensional work right behind me. I have a drawing right behind me. I still make prints, but I'm all over the place. So I like to kind of go where the wind blows me, creatively speaking, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. But I guess I can get started by just walking you guys around the space. Okay, let's flip it. All right, so I have a studio downtown Birmingham, literally right between where I work and I live. So I live not about 10 minutes from downtown Birmingham. It's my bike. I work at ASFA, which is downtown. And so my studio is strategically placed right between my teaching gig and where I live. Okay. Here's a table that I recently cleaned a little bit just for this. All right, so here we go. I keep reference material around, so lately I've been making a lot of sculpture, so I'll read Sculpture magazine or any magazines dealing with sculpture, rap music, and just music in general is kind of a part of my process and certainly a part of some of the work that I deal with. I'm making work mainly about identity and my Black American experience. Here's some sculpture that was in a couple shows some drawings of mine. These Afro combs get a lot of attention, so I'm certainly going to answer some questions that you may have. And I'm sorry, I'm reading some of these questions and things like that, so I got a little distracted. All right, so the combs, and I'll get to those. These are made of wood. Lots of pieces of, little small pieces of wood. I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to some things. I'm pretty handy in a shop when woodworking and things like that. I'm kind of self-taught. Here's our Public Enemy album cover. Child of the 80s, I guess. 90s. I'm obsessed with circles. I think obsessions, with certain things visually, I think is kind of certainly part of my process and kind of listening to those obsessions. So anyway, if there's some trash or something like that around that I think I can use in the future, even bicycle wheels. Here's some 2-dimensional / 3-dimensional wall release that kind of help changed some things for me. This is a drawing, I guess I'm calling it. That was in a show about a year ago, this time actually. It's some fairly new work. That was in that same show as a part of an installation. This is in a show at Space 111 last year. The gun show, dealing with, selected artists' views on gun violence in America. It's a very interesting show. This is a drum that my brother kind of commissioned me to paint about 8 years ago, and it's not finished yet, so I have to distress that and paint some more layers. There are a couple of my paintings featuring those combs. And I can talk about those later and answer any questions that you may have. This is a wall relief, basically a shield is what I like to call it. Again, that's circle and a target motif that I'm really into. And I guess that this is a motif that was inspired by the album cover in the logo for the rap band Public Enemy. Okay. Some more pieces. So lately, people are calling me a sculptor. I can see why, because I've been making a lot of 3D stuff. This is a piece that is left over. The last time this is a part of an installation that was at the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts several years ago. And if you go to my Instagram page, you'll see it. Album covers, Yellow Man. Okay, so I guess what I'll do is, all right, so this is my workspace. I came across this hair when I was cleaning up. Any hair that falls out of off my head, I'll use, or I'll save at least, maybe for a future art project or something. I've used my hair in art pieces before, so I guess nothing's off limit, so to speak. Okay, let's get this back. Okay. All right, so a little bit about my work. So I'm making work about identity, okay? And that wasn't always the case. And, I was making work years ago, I guess about maybe time, space, certainly my environment. It's very abstract. You couldn't really tell who was creating the work when you looked at it, which was fine by me. I was making work that I loved and I had a passion for. but it was certainly different than the stuff that I'm making now. But something was compelling me to make work about identity. But I was kind of making that on the DL, so to speak, in my studio years ago, while I continued to make the other stuff. Let's just say that. And then I had an opportunity, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, so it seems like that long, to do a show with my mentors, Jim Neal and Larry Anderson at Space 111, which I was encouraged to do something different. And so I seized that moment, that opportunity to make a switch. And so I've been making work about my experience as an African American ever since then. And that exhibition was a huge part of my journey now. When I made that move, I mean, I wanted it to be as honest, as possible. I didn't want to. I don't know. I just wanted. I wanted to be honest, and so I did a lot of soul searching, research, this is stuff that I've been doing anyway, in regard to just my daily existence, researching. I do some reading from time to time, and I've always been socially conscious, even especially as a college student. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I certainly started listening to Public Enemy. I started listening to a lot of music, socially conscious rap music back in the day. And so when I began making this new work, I started to think back to my past. Hair has always been an important part of my growing up, style, I guess, or whatever, music, and so I decided to start making work using, those experiences. And I think that's where things like the comb showed up. I'm going to switch down to my laptop so you can see. Not sure if you can see what's happening. Here, can I? Yeah. All right, this is a collograph print that I made years ago. Again, I'm not sure how old this is. But it was back when I was making a lot of prints. And if you can see, collograph is like building a plate of textures, and then inking that plate, and then I'm actually printing, and you get some pretty interesting things. And so when I created this comb print, some really cool things happen. If you look at it, it kind of looks like maybe a human form in a lot of ways, maybe a ghost, but it does have a figurative quality to it, and that's one of the cool things about abstraction for me. If you alter things just slightly from the work is open, it becomes more open to interpretation. I think the artist's subconscious begins to play a part in the process, which I'm always interested in. For me, making art is about discovery and discovering things about myself. Going deeper, and so that's one of the things. And so anyway, when I made this piece, which was going to be a comb floating in the middle of a picture plane, it turned into much more. So I decided to do a whole series of an entire series of comb drawings, paintings, and prints, and whatever, to kind of see what else can I discover, and that led to more drawings, paintings, and it certainly led to, oops, not sure what that was. I just hit something. It led ultimately to this sculpture, and this sculpture is about 8.5 feet tall, and it's called Funkadelic Relic. And when I decided to make the switch to sculpture, it was very important for me to rely on drawing. And so, because that's something I feel really comfortable doing, drawing and painting. At the time, sculpture I didn't feel too comfortable with that. So I figured if I was going to make that switch, I see that question. I was going to get to that. Yeah, don't burn these, by the way. That's a good question. Using my experience with painting and kind of creating illusions, I kind of created that illusion of the burn, like a burnt wood, kind of something that was old and discarded. All of this wood is basically new that I've distressed, and really the wood began. This piece just started with that comb piece from years ago, and me wanting to make a sculpture of it, and me wanting to basically capture the energy that I thought was happening in the print that made it interesting to me, and I think to several people. How could I capture that energy in something huge and three-dimensional? So basically, I figured I'll use lots of pieces of wood that would give it kind of a sketch-like quality. The burnt color, or this kind of monotone, kind of black, gray, and tones. And that was just me, really, it just began with me just wanting to create like this look of charcoal or graphite, again, which would make me feel comfortable moving forward in something, as ambitious as a 8-foot tall Afro comb. And again, it's just weird. To be honest with you, it's weird how it works, and just how a lot of the things work for me. I'll start a project, or I'll save some wood from other projects, and that's what happened here, because I knew I would want to use that later, but I'm not sure how. And so all these little pieces of wood I saved from making frames and things like that, and I knew that they would serve a purpose eventually, but I saw the energy in that scrap wood years ago, before this endeavor, and when I decided to make something like this, I thought I went straight to that old wood and use it for this, and it just really worked out. So again, all right, so I hope that answered the question about burnt wood. Laura, do I have any other questions that you? All right, so one of the things I find really interesting is I've always considered myself a 2D person until recently. Okay, I'm printmaker, painter. I make drawings or whatever. But apparently, it's one of those things with what happens with the work is that sometimes the work is letting you know things about yourself that you didn't even realize. If we get closer to this is stuff that wanted to be three-dimensional, and I was not aware of it. But I was making paintings that were actually thick, okay? Really thick paintings, and things that were trying to like pop out, using pieces of wood and so forth, whatever. And I didn't know it at the time. And then it wasn't until I was making the actual sculpture itself, I discovered that, wow, okay, my painting for years has been trying to inform me to move in a three-dimensional direction. Once I discovered that's what was happening with the work, I became more aware about other things that my work was trying to inform me to do. And this is definitely one of those things. I think the cool thing about being an artist is having kind of a heightened sense of awareness. I mean, I like to think that, when I get up in the morning and I walk outside the door and I see the leaves, I see, I don't know, the sky, I feel the wind or whatever. And this is stuff, that maybe some people will take for granted, but I like to think that I'm not. And I really like how all of these things that we experience in a day or whatever has the potential of showing up in the work later, and then informing us, the artists, about something that and maybe we've been taking for granted or whatever. But anyway, that's why that's huge as far as my process is concerned. Never, I don't want to feel like I'm trapped in working in one particular way, one medium, using one kind of material. I'm always aware of what the work is suggesting I do next. Okay. All right, so I'm just I think I have a question. So what's the most difficult piece to make? I think, that's a good question. I don't really think of it like that. It's difficult if we're talking physical work, as far as making work physically, I think, some of the three-dimensional, the sculptural pieces are the most difficult and maybe demanding when it comes to the physical activity. Mentally, I think it's all the same, as far as, thinking about the work. Some pieces come faster than others. When that happens, a lot of people say, and I think it happens for a lot of artists, you'll make something really, really fast and it's really, really good, and you wonder, wow, that was easy. And for me, it's always been my belief that you did that work years ago, or that work was years in the making. You just were not aware of it, and for that so-called easy moment, you had a moment of clarity, okay? And so that's what that whole thing was about. And so I'm certainly aware of that when in my studio practice, is that when a work seems to kind of flow really fast, it wasn't that it was easy or less difficult. It was just that that work was kind of cooking, for years before it decided to come out. Yeah. Okay. Looking at more questions. Okay, it looks like I have about 2 minutes left, and I'm trying to find some other questions. Thank you, Laura. Hammer. Okay, so the comb, so the comb, real quick. Real quick. Lots of small pieces of wood. Yes, lots of nails, kind of brad nails. I use an air nail gun. Maybe you can see some of those here, and they're all over the place, so there are a ton. Lots of distressing, lots of painting, lots of washing, and then more distressing, and then bring it back. Lots of killing it and bring it back to life is what I like to call it. To kind of create these pieces. I started out with some like a armature, and I guess really I started out with this plastic comb, and I just wanted to get the scale right. So I did a lot of drawing on large pieces of paper, kind of like this butcher paper here, and yeah. And then I created a wooden armature, and then I started attaching lots of smaller pieces of wood to it. And you can kind of see that. Yeah. Which actually become what I like, these are like small paintings in themselves. I really enjoyed working on these, and they really inspired me to do other pieces and other drawings and things like that. My my experience with printmaking, I think certainly played a huge part in everything that I do. Yes. Okay, so I think my 30 minutes is up. Laura, I'm not sure what to do next here. Oh, I got a question. How durable are the large pieces? Very. These things are put together. Just like, again, I wasn't trained in any of this. I'm just kind of making it up as I go. But I'm a huge believer in overbuilding something, especially in the first one. And then I learned so much from that first one about maybe how to save materials, make things a little bit lighter, especially since I have to haul things around a lot lately, and that's been a different experience for me. It's a huge difference between hauling a painting and then all of a sudden now I'm hauling these big sculptures all over the place. But I made them lighter, but still I've been able to make them stronger. And so I'm just learning a lot when I'm building this stuff too. But they're very durable. Good question. Did you create those? Yes. Someone asked about the combs. Did I create those around the time that I was making those chairs, which is another project, another series of three-dimensional works. I created these thrones, what I was calling thrones, chairs that you can sit in, that the viewer could kind of participate with the work. And so, yeah, the chairs are actually after the combs or the Afro picks, but certainly using the same technique, basically. What is the scale of your work? That's a good question. Has the scale changed? When I switched from 2D to 3D, I think the scale. No, not really. The scale. I've always worked large, and then small again, and medium, large again. It just really just depends on where the wind blows me, so to speak. This is huge. I don't know if you. Again, this is over 8 feet tall. Of course, 8 feet in diameter. So scale, again, I'm not afraid to go big if I have to, and I'm certainly not afraid to go back to smaller works. It's not a big deal. Scale to me is just, it's just never an issue. I do what I have to do to kind of get the ideas across. All right. Okay, guys, so I'm way over my allotted time. So I want to thank everyone for showing up. And if you have any more questions, you can contact me for I think there's my contact information is on the website at the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts. Thank you. All right, goodbye.